It's time again for the Urban Chicken Podcast. Hey, let's talk chicken. Welcome to episode 5 of the Urban Chicken Podcast, where all things chicken are discussed and considered. My name is Jennifer, and I am your host. On today's episode, I have Karen Schulkin, who is the current organizer of the San Francisco Pet Chicken Meetup Group. Karen and I are going to discuss what it's like to own chickens in a large city like San Francisco, and how having a chicken meetup group in San Francisco has helped the backyard chicken community in San Francisco and the surrounding areas. There is a relatively new term related to chicken enthusiasts that seems to be growing in popularity. Listen to the end of this week's episode to learn in Sally Side Notes what this new chicken terminology is and if you fit this term. Before we get going this week, I have to admit that I am feeling almost giddy. I have actually learned some new tricks in editing audio in Audacity that I believe should help me bring a better quality show to you, the listeners. I love it when I can learn new things and bring them to you. So this all came about when I had a listener let me know that though she loved the interview in episode 2 with Jeff Lay about Nettie Metcalf and the Buckeyed Chickens, she did not love that Jeff's voice came through her headphones in one ear and my voice came through the other ear. I hadn't realized that my audio was doing that. But sure enough, when I went back and listened to episode 2 through headphones, there was the split ear audio quirk. I very much want to bring you all the highest quality audio possible, and so I went searching for the answer to fix this problem. Well, after a couple hours of online research and watching YouTube videos, I have figured out how to fix that problem so that none of my future interviews will ever be like episode 2 again. Hooray for small victories. As a bonus side point, I also learned how to reduce some of the background noise in my audios too. Yay, more progress. I did use this noise reducing technique to cut down a good portion of the background cafe noise in today's episode. There is still some noise in the episode. I'm sorry, it just wasn't really the quietest of cafes where Karen and I actually had our interview. There is, however, one hiccup with today's interview. For some inexplicable reason, my digital recorder decided not to record the last question that I had posed to Karen when I interviewed her or our goodbyes to each other. So I have to admit this interview does end a little bit abruptly. Otherwise, it is a very interesting interview with Karen Schulkin of the San Francisco Pet Meetup Group. Now let's turn to the latest chicken news. The very first chicken hotel in America has opened in Eugene, Oregon. Bill Bezick is the owner-manager of The Nest, as this chicken hotel is called, which offers accommodations for its customers' birds while they are out of town. There are 2 tiers of services offered. At $2 a day per hen, your girls will receive standard service, which includes comfortable coop accommodations, fresh feed, scratch and water, and daily coop cleanings. For a slightly larger fee of $3 a day per hen, your girls will be treated to turn down service right before bedtime by being given treats of mealworms. The deluxe service also provides photo texts or emails of your hens being sent to you while you are away so that you can see that your chickens are happy and well. The Nest Chicken Hotel service has already been well received in the Eugene, Oregon chicken community. The Nest opened for business in February of this year and is already booked solid through May. You can go to the webpage to find links for news stories about this business, as well as other photos and information about this business. It's now time to turn to the main segment of today's show. I was in San Francisco this last week on a whirlwind visit for business purposes and decided that while I was there, I should seize the opportunity of looking into the urban chicken scene in this very metropolitan city. I was very pleased to find that San Francisco has a very popular chicken meetup group that is made up of chicken enthusiasts from all around the Bay Area. Karen Schulkin, the official organizer of the San Francisco Pet Chicken Meetup Group, was very generous to take time out of her busy schedule and sit down over a cup of coffee and tell the Urban Chicken podcast about the San Francisco Pet Chicken Meetup Group and what it's like to keep chickens in San Francisco. Let's turn now to that interview. Karen is the organizer of the San Francisco Pet Chicken Meetup Group, and she is joining us today to discuss chickens in San Francisco, as well as what it's like to have a meetup group that's totally dedicated to having chickens. Thank you for joining me on this live interview today in a small cafe in breezy, sunny San Francisco. We appreciate having you here today.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
So Karen, like I mentioned, you are the organizer of the San Francisco Pet Chicken Meetup Group. Could you tell me a little bit how you ended up in that position?
I ended up in that position accidentally. The previous meetup, what do you call her? The organizer, she had to step back, and so I paid the fee, making me the head of the group.
So you are the sole organizer at this point?
Yeah.
Well, for my listeners who are unfamiliar with what Meetup is and how it works, could you please briefly describe or explain what Meetup is and how it works?
Well, people who have similar interests can join the group together, and then they can do things together depending on what the topic is. So for our chicken group, we've had meetups at different people's houses to see how they set up their chicken coop in their yard.
So just to clarify, is Meetup actually a group that organizes itself online?
Yes, Meetup is an online website with, hundreds or thousands of different groups. People with whatever your interest is. Hopefully you're nearby so you can actually meet together.
Are meetup groups available all over the U.S.?
I think all over the world.
All over the world.
It's a big thing.
How do you go about setting up a meetup group?
You suggest a group, and then it's listed on their website. You set the parameters for what you're interested in and what you want to do and where you are and who you want to join.
And when you start a group, do you usually start with a core group of members already there, or do you just kind of put it out there and see who joins?
You just put it out there.
So can you talk a little bit about what it costs fees-wise?
Fees-wise, I think it's about $150 per year.
And that's $150 per year to start a meetup group?
I think so.
Okay.
Well, you pay, I think it was $75 or something like that for 6 months. So you only have to pay half at the beginning.
Okay, I see. That's actually a little more expensive than I would have thought.
Me too. But they're offering more help with the group, more like how to publicize, how to maximize their service. They'll help you.
As the organizer or the inherited organizer of the San Francisco Pet Chicken Group, I assume that you must have chickens. Is that correct?
I do have chickens.
Could you please describe your chickens? I know you had mentioned to me you don't know what breeds you have, but can you tell me about your chickens?
They're bantams. They got little ones because that's all they had left at the feed store when we went to get them, and we had our heart set on coming home with them. So we got the ones that they had there.
So San Francisco has a feed store?
Well, you go to Half Moon Bay. We went to the Half Moon Bay feed or whatever it's called.
Now, I'm not really familiar with San Francisco. I mean, where is that in relationship to, like, the heart of San Francisco?
Say it's about a half an hour drive or so.
Oh, so you really got a trek to go get feed and to go get chickens.
Well, that was to buy the chicks, but now there's pet stores in the city that stock chicken food.
Oh, wow. Okay. So going back to your chickens, how long have you had your chickens?
For about 5 years.
And do you have a favorite? I mean, everybody has a favorite child, so do you have a favorite chicken?
Well, my favorite got killed by my favorite dog. So then I went to the SPCA because there were people who were posting on the website all the chickens that were at the shelter. And so I just went to the shelter and found one that was young. Mm-hmm. And she wasn't very hard to integrate. And now she's the only one that's not a bantam.
And what does she look like?
She's brown.
Your favorite brown chicken. So what are your chicken names? What are your chicken? Did you name your chickens? I assume you named your chickens.
The brown one came with the name of Pecan.
Uh-huh.
Penny, Betsy.
Yes.
Tina, and I can't remember the other one. I know, it's been so long.
The least favorite chicken's name's
I always
been forgotten.
get them confused.
Since Pecan is your favorite chicken, does she also have the biggest personality of your group?
Yeah, she does. She's the most friendly. Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit more about the group right now. Do you know kind of what brought the group together?
Their love of chickens in San Francisco.
How many members does the San Francisco Pet Chicken Group have right now?
I do not know.
If I told you that I had read on your Chicken Meetup group that you have 120 members, or would that sound about right to you?
I have no clue. We've had several meetups, and there's different people that have come to each of them. There's sort of the same people, like maybe 10 or 15 people that were the same, and then different people. So, yeah, I would imagine with the way Meetup works that people come and go through those things.
Is your group still regularly gaining new members?
Yes.
And how often would you say you gain new members?
I don't know. Weekly there's one or two, maybe.
Wow, that's actually quite a bit. Could you please briefly tell my listeners a little bit about what the current state of the San Francisco chicken laws are?
You cannot have a rooster, and you can have 4 small animals. That would count as cats, dogs, and chickens.
So the city looks at a chicken as a pet, just like a guinea pig, a cat.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Along with not being able to keep any roosters, and you can keep 4 chickens, are there any rules as far as coops, where they have to lie, how big your yards are?
15 feet from the neighbor's house.
And do you actually have to get a permit and have an inspection?
No,
I know some towns are crazy with that stuff.
No,
but
they're very nice.
Oh, that's good. So San Francisco is very metropolitan here, and can't really see what the houses look like from behind, but do most of the San Francisco homes here, do they have some kind of green space in the back?
Yes, most people have enough space they could have chickens.
So if people wanted to, the majority of San Francisco residents could actually have chickens in their own backyard?
I would say at least a third of the people.
Okay. When you think of San Francisco, you don't necessarily think of backyard chickens. In your opinion, do you think the practice of keeping backyard chickens is on the rise in San Francisco?
Yes, of course. Like everywhere.
Like everywhere. Do you think it's equal to everywhere, or do you think it's actually a little more popular than other places?
Don't know. Our dog was lost recently, and I was looking in the neighbor's backyard, and the neighbors came out, and they're saying, "Oh, are you the one with chickens? We have chickens, and those guys over there have chickens." So I think there's a lot of them around. We just don't realize it. I can hear them sometimes in the morning.
Oh, you can hear their chickens?
I can hear other chickens in the neighborhood. Yeah, but people might not want to share that either because they don't want trouble.
Yeah.
Even though they're allowed, people can give you a hard time.
Let's talk about that a little bit. There's always Nancy naysayers. There's always got to be a detractor over everything in life. So are there detractors, or what would you say the Nancy naysayers about backyard chickens in San Francisco are saying? What are their major arguments against chickens?
Well, I would say the noise. I didn't realize how noisy they were, and we're all up against each other.
Mm-hmm. Are there any other arguments that they...
Smell? I don't think they smell, but...
In my experience, because I have 4 chickens now, but I've had up to 6. We can have up to 6, and I've never found them to be that stinky. I mean, have you had any...
No.
Do you find chickens to be particularly smelly?
No, ours don't. I don't think they stink, but I think people would think that.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of people that have a lot of false impressions based on large chicken industry.
Yeah.
That if a large, Foster Farm stinks, therefore your 4 chickens in your backyard are probably going to stink. You mentioned that you think that keeping backyard chickens in San Francisco is on the rise. And I asked, did you think that was true, particularly in San Francisco? And I bring this up because I know that Alice Waters, years ago, is the famous chef in the San Francisco area that kind of started or kind of popularized the local boar food movement, the whole eating local boar, eating organically, slow food movement here. Do you think that urban farming, the local boar movement, and keeping backyard chickens is kind of related here?
Definitely. What made me want the chickens was reading The Omnivore's Dilemma and hearing the description of the eggs. And plus, we like pets in my family. Yeah, I think it completely ties into wanting to have control over your food and good food and food from close by. And humaneness. I think people here really worry about the cruelty to animals. And so if they're your animals, then you don't have to worry.
No, that's true. That's definitely true. Aside from the detractors, are there any particular problems that San Francisco residents face trying to keep chickens in the city?
Animals that are going to kill them.
Like what? Are you talking about neighbors' dogs, or what are we looking at?
Yeah, dogs, raccoons, maybe birds. I don't know. We totally enclosed our coop so that we wouldn't have any kills. One of my friends had something dig into hers and got a horrific mess, I guess, trying to pull the chicken through the hole. And
that's awful.
it was probably like a mole or a possum.
A possum. I hadn't thought about that, but you guys probably do have a lot of possums with the trees and weather
Some
here.
of them are big.
Really?
Yes.
Like, how big can a possum get?
Oh, like a dog.
Like a small, medium-sized dog?
Not a medium-sized dog, but okay, say like 20 or 30 pounds.
That's a good-sized possum.
Could kill a chicken.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Your group is the San Francisco Pet Chicken Meetup Group. Are there other meetup chicken groups specifically dedicated to keeping chickens in other towns or other cities around this area?
Not that I know of. When we've had our meetups, there's people from kind of far away, so I don't think so.
How far away are, like, your furthest members coming from?
Well, maybe an hour or two. Somebody came from really far away the last meetup. I forget where they were from.
Wow.
The people who have hosted the groups are people who are living here and who have recently set up their chicken coop, and they want to share, and they're proud of it. And a lot of people come to see how to get feedback on whether they want to do it or not, and what's the best way, and if it's worth it.
About how many meetups a year do you usually have?
Well, it's been people stepping up and saying that they wanted to host. So we've had 4.
4 over the last how many years?
2.
2?
Maybe?
Okay.
I don't know.
So you have a meetup, it sounds like, a couple times a year at least.
Yeah.
That's not bad. I was reading on your webpage that recently you had an activity with a home brewer was actually donating free spent grain from his making homebrew to feed his chickens.
Yeah, there's a lot of local beer making here. So one of the girls, her friend was a brewmaster, so they were offering to give away the grain. And my kids have made beer. The chickens love that grain.
If I'm understanding you right, any member of the group can actually step up and organize an activity.
Yes, I would love that.
So I guess the point being is, as the organizer, all the work doesn't necessarily have to fall on you.
Yeah, the people in my group have been the ones to move things along.
When people throw activities, you're 120 members strong, do 120 people show up, or how many people usually show up?
No, not 120. Maybe 30? 20 or 30.
Do you guys usually put a cap on how many participants can come, or do you just kind of let it sort itself out?
No, there doesn't need to be a cap because we've been in people's backyards and there's plenty of room, and it's only limited by parking.
So let's talk about the members of the San Francisco Pet Chicken Meetup Group. Do most of the members, in your understanding, do most of the members of this group already have chickens or not?
No, they're looking for information.
So what percentage of the members would you say already have chickens versus are just chicken curious?
I don't know, maybe 50-50.
Okay. For those people who don't have chickens yet, how does your group help them, kind of get on the way?
Well, they can ask whatever questions they want, and they can see how other people have done it, and they can hear what it's like, what the responsibility is. The last meetup, there was a guy who came. He was one of the ones who came from a long ways away, and he thought there was going to be a lot more involved in trying to take care of them and to get to talk to people about how much time it takes, how it's enriched their lives, and how many eggs you can expect, and that kind of thing. It's helpful.
On the Meetup webpage, do your members have the ability to pose questions and answer them?
Yeah.
Do you find that people use your Meetup page as kind of a forum to ask questions and people answer?
They can.
So, back to new members. When these people that don't have chickens yet end up coming to these Meetup groups, do you think that they are generally surprised how easy it is to keep chickens?
Yeah, I think so. For me, when I was reading the books before we got ours, it felt really complicated, and I didn't know how to set it up, and yeah, so when you see them in action in someone's yard, it gives a really good sense of it.
Before I got started with chickens, one of my biggest concerns was how much was it really going to cost me? Like, how much was it going to cost me to build a coop and feed them and care for them? Do you find that a lot of potential new chicken owners are also concerned with the financial costs to it?
Yes, because if you look at the pre-made coops and stuff, they're expensive.
Oh, they're way expensive.
Yeah, so I think that is a part of it for a lot of people.
Do most of your meetup group, do they mostly build their own coops or are they buying coops?
They're building their own. I haven't seen anyone that bought one.
Do you think seeing other people having built coops, do you think that is sort of empowering to people that want to get chickens but are a little nervous about it?
Yeah, definitely. And to see that you could build it pretty cheaply. And we have a place here that sells recycled building materials, so you could get it for really cheap.
Oh, that's great. That's really great. What do you think the most successful part of having the San Francisco Pet Chicken Group is?
Just the ability to connect with other people in the city. They can answer questions if you have a problem. It just feels nice when you're out. Sometimes you run into people and you know them, and it's less of a common thing. It just feels nice. One of the girls at one of the first meetups there was some kind of illness, and she was just talking about how she handled that and how she had to kill the chicken because it was suffering. And
did it have Merrick's disease?
Can't remember.
Did it go very sickly and couldn't walk anymore?
Yeah.
It's Merrick's disease, and once that gets to your flock, that's just deadly.
Yeah.
It's very sad.
But just to have people like that are resources, stuff that I would never know about.
Now, you've mentioned that at least 50% of your members are brand new to keeping chickens. Are some of your members quite seasoned at keeping chickens?
Yes, one of the guys is very seasoned. He's had them for like 20 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he's really helpful.
As a group, what do you think the group's hopes are for this group going forward? Do you guys have any aspirations for where you would like to see the group go, or more activities you would like to see the group do?
I don't know if anybody thinks about it that way. If anyone has, they haven't said anything to me. And I just always assumed that people were free to post or organize or do whatever they wanted. Maybe they didn't. Maybe no one thinks that way. I don't know. But I think other people in the group probably feel good about being a resource too, because most everyone has used the group that way.
Mm-hmm. For my listeners in other towns that are chicken enthusiasts, would you recommend to them to start a chicken meetup group in their town?
I think some way to connect with the other people. And here in San Francisco, I guess that's a big way that people do connect. Like I was saying about my neighbors, I didn't know that so many neighbors had chickens. I only know the people that are in the meetup group. So for us, it's useful.
Yeah. Do you think it would be useful for other chicken enthusiasts in other cities?
I think so.
Now, I know that you didn't start this chicken meetup group, but as the organizer today of the group as it is now, do you have any advice that you would give to would-be chicken meetup organizers in other cities? What would you suggest to them if they were going to go ahead and start one of these groups in their town?
Well, maybe they could go through the tutorial that Meetup is offering now, because Meetup is giving a lot of support on how to maximize their service.
They are. So when you say maximize their service, are you talking about the actual technology functions of it, or are you talking more promotion of your group?
Everything.
Everything?
Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
They really want it to work for you.
You talked about what you thought is the most enriching part of keeping chickens from your point of view, and that is understanding and feeling more connected to your food source and having control over that. And you had mentioned that one of the reasons you keep chickens is because of how horrible factory-raised chickens are kept. It's an interesting fact that there's actually a company in San Francisco, right downtown, called Hampton Creek Foods. And Hampton Creek Foods shares the point of view that factory-raised chickens and eggs is a horrible, inhumane thing, the way it's done. But interestingly, Hampton Creek Foods' answer to that problem is to create a synthetic egg. And they are doing that through texturized proteins and gums, and they're basically creating a synthetic egg. What do you think of that answer to the problem of farm cruelty to chickens?
I can't even imagine what they're making the egg out of. That's disgusting. I think that sounds awful.
What about that creates the most concern for you?
Well, first of all, what are they making it out of? It's probably going to be some kind of weird soy. And it's just not going to be anything like an egg. I think backyard chickens are a great way for people to connect with real life, to use up your kitchen scraps for kids to understand animals and what they need. And like I said, for me, it's changed my relationship with our land. You know, I go around the yard and I find stuff for them to eat, and I clean out the stuff that they didn't eat, and it's just made the soil rich. It's on a whole different planet from an egg from a store.
Does the San Francisco Pet Chicken Meetup Group, does it have a mission statement to it?
I don't know. I'm definitely glad that the meetup can be there as a resource for new people who want chickens, because I think it's really important for people to have experience or the ability to do it because of local food. That's something that I really believe in. Mm-hmm. And I think chickens are really a part of that. Having our own flock at home has changed my understanding of everything, the soil, the compost, the animals. It's really expanded my life, and it's such a little input of time. It feels really good.
As I mentioned at the beginning of today's show, my digital recorder inexplicably failed to record the last question I posed to Karen in our interview. The missing last question I had asked Karen was whether she thought the trend of keeping backyard chickens was a passing fad or something more lasting. Karen had explained to me that she strongly believes that keeping backyard chickens is not a passing fad, unlike wearing acid-wash jeans, for example. She supported her opinion with the argument that concerns over healthy, organic food sources is growing, and that trend is in lockstep response to the ever-growing prevalence of large agrobusiness. Karen hypothesized that the practice of keeping backyard chickens will continue to grow as the awareness of questionable farming practices continues to come into light. Karen also noted to me that chickens are such charming and fascinating creatures that she believes that once a person or a family has had the pleasure of owning them, it would be hard for that person or that family to give up keeping chickens in the future. I fully agree with Karen. I think keeping backyard chickens is here to stay. What can I say? Life is just better with a few hens in the yard. My sincerest thank you goes out to Karen Schulkin for taking time to be on today's episode. Karen and the San Francisco Pet Meetup Group should be an inspiration to chicken enthusiasts elsewhere to find some way, whether that be via creating a local chicken meetup group or through some other forum to bring together urban chicken owners in your own community. It is a very satisfying thing to get together with other chicken owners and share information with each other, as well as provide useful guidance to people who are interested in getting some backyard hens, but may also be feeling a little bit overwhelmed by the idea. Having a local backyard urban chicken community can also be an amazing resource for even the more seasoned chicken owners, as the members can help each other with troubling chicken questions or issues locally, or to go in together for a mail order hatchery purchase that would be too large for the single urban chicken owner to place by themselves. The San Francisco Pet Chicken Meetup Group, I think, was also very clever by having activities such as sharing spent grain from one San Francisco Pet Chicken member's home beer brewing operation. I really do encourage all of my listeners to find a way to come together as a group with other urban chicken owners in your area. Please go to today's show notes for a link to the San Francisco Pet Chicken Meetup Group. You can check out their webpage for ideas and inspiration to create your own local chicken club. That sound lets us know that it's time again for Sally's Side Notes. There are wine snobs. There are fine cheese snobs. The newest chicken terminology on the rise in use is the term egg snob. An egg snob is simply defined as follows. Someone who greatly appreciates and prefers the superior taste, coloring, and overall quality of a free-range homegrown egg over that of a commercially produced store-bought one. In fact, it is quite common for egg snobs to flat out refuse to either buy or eat these inferior, pale-yolked, runny factory-farmed eggs. The rising number of egg snobs in the general populace has led to the question of whether all of this egg snobbery is actually based in reality or just a fiction in these egg snobs' heads. Columnist Beth Kassab, an avid egg snob herself, was recently challenged by a friend to prove that her homegrown eggs were any different or better than store-bought ones. Beth accepted her friend's challenge with a side-by-side test. First, Beth cracked open an egg produced by one of her own backyard hens next to one of her friend's store-bought eggs. The difference in the yolk color was startlingly different, as well as the texture of the egg itself. Then Beth and her friend fried up these two test eggs side by side. The results of this taste test were clear. The home-raised egg had a far superior taste and freshness, which her friend readily conceded. Beyond just Beth Kassab's friendly taste test, there is a whole thread on the backyardchickens.com forum, which is dedicated to the single subject of being an egg snob. I say own it. We should own our egg snobbery. Why apologize for preferring a better egg? I think Beth Kassab's side-by-side testing with her friend was a very clever way to gain a true convert into the wholesome egg camp. Maybe this is something that we all could try out on our skeptical family and skeptical friends that think that, well, that we're just a little cracked in the head over our homegrown eggs. You can find the link to Beth's article in today's show notes. Well, that's all I have for this week's episode of the Urban Chicken Podcast. Be sure and join me next week when we tackle more new and interesting chicken issues and topics. Please be sure and visit my website located at www.urbanchickenpodcast.com to find photos from Karen Schulkin, as well as links to the San Francisco Pet Meetup Group and all of the links to all of the stories and topics discussed in today's show. Thank you again for tuning into this week's episode. Until next time, me and the chickens here wish you a good week. See ya! Thanks for listening to the Urban Chicken Podcast at www.urbanchickenpodcast.com. The theme music used on the Urban Chicken Podcast is Jenny's Theme, written and performed by Jason Shaw. You can find this at freemusicarchive.org. See you next week.